Hey everyone, welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
I'm Marcia Parker.
And we are here to do our official Halloween movie ranking.
Yes.
It's a very in thing to do right now, obviously, considering the new movie just came out. We haven't actually done a movie ranking here on the Horror Show before, so this is going to be our first one.
I guess that makes sense.
Yep, and we will be doing all the series in turn eventually. But yes, we are starting with Halloween, which has 11 entries, you guys. And we're going to go from bottom up here.
Bottom up.
Or do you want to go top down?
It doesn't matter. Bottom up.
Bottom up. My number 11 worst, least favorite Halloween movie is Rob Zombie's Halloween 2.
No, okay.
I hated this one. I thought Scout Taylor Compton is unbearable as a hysterical Laurie Strode. I think the amount, it was the Lord of the Rings of Halloween movies because of the amount of walking that Michael Myers does in this movie. Just walking and walking and walking and crossing farmlands and all this stuff. And just walking. It's so stupid. And then the fact that in the director's cut he talks at the end. It's just awful. Just the movie's terrible. Loomis is completely abandoned and taken in a completely different fame-hungry direction, betraying everything we've ever known about the character and making Malcolm McDowell seem like an utter douchebag asshole that you hate watching.
Yeah.
I like The Mask okay, except it didn't make sense because Scout blew his head off in the last movie, and all they did was like have a little flap open here, but his face was still all the way there. That doesn't make sense to me. There's just a lot. We're not going to focus too deep on these because we did do reviews of them all, but that's why it's just my least favorite movie.
Yeah.
Yours?
I'm actually gonna go with 6.
Oh, okay, really?
Yeah, Chris? Yeah. And I don't know if I won't. It's kind of jumping ahead, but I would say, 4, 5, and 6 were my bottoms.
Okay.
And it's just the Thorne series. I don't like that. I like the Jamie. I'm a big fan of the Laurie Strode, Michael Myers storyline. So I didn't like those because it really veered off of that storyline, even though it's supposed to be like, an extension of Michael Myers' family. Even though, Jamie was okay and the acting was okay or whatever, I just wasn't interested in that type of story. I wanted more of the Michael versus Laurie, and I don't like the cop out of him, being part of a cult, and that's why he was evil, and then trying to get it to after he killed the last one, then it would go to the next kid and he would be the next one. I just wasn't into it. I just like the fact that Michael was evil. I like them to stick to the Michael is evil and he's trying to kill Laurie storyline.
Okay.
So I wasn't a fan of those ones.
Okay, so those are your bottom 3 then?
Yeah,
4,
I kind
5,
of all
6,
go
just lumped
together.
Okay.
So you go ahead.
Then I'll do my number 10 and number 9. My number 10, and this is going to piss a lot of people off and make sense to others. My number 10 is Halloween 3, the non-Michael Myers.
Oh, well,
Halloween
I didn't
movie.
watch Halloween 3, so I guess I didn't rank that one.
Well, I guess, technically we'll leave it off your list then.
Yeah.
We'll just put unranked at the bottom.
Unranked.
I don't like this one very much because there's no Michael. Not just because there's no Michael Myers. I don't like witchy things. I think outside of a couple of good kills, the movie is completely boring. Everyone loves Tom Atkins. I don't really particularly enjoy him in this. I mean, he does an okay job playing a womanizing dickhead trying to stop kid death, I guess, but he's not engaging to me to watch. I don't care. He's just another Lush from the 80s, and they don't stick with me. And while the first time I saw the pumpkin head like melting into bugs and stuff, it was really cool. This just didn't do it for me this time. It was like, where are all the bugs coming from? How does this mask work? Okay, witchcraft, and so where do the bugs come from? Do they just materialize? Do they grow out of the interior of the mask? How does this happen? Are they coming from inside the kid? What is going on? What are the physics of it? And show me more than just damn one, if that's the whole point. Like, they just show this is what's going to happen when all the kids sit in front of the TV at 9 o'clock. Like, test it on a few of them and show it, show a progression or something. Show how the masks evolved. Like the first one just made their eyes bleed, wasn't good enough. The next one, maybe their head exploded, not a good thing. Then do something like that. Like I'm not into this. I don't like this one.
No.
So that's my number 10, and then I'll go to my number 9. 9 is Halloween Resurrection.
I knew.
I put that just under the Thorne trilogy.
Okay.
Because while the Thorne trilogy does have a lot of drawbacks, it's at least more classic Michael Myers movie. This Resurrection wears its 2000s on its sleeve so hard that I don't like it. I like some of the kills, and I do like the fact that it is more of an updated sort of Halloween thing. It just fails in that attempt. It's pretty cheesy. I don't know how Michael Myers decapitates Starbuck with one swipe of his kitchen knife, but it happens. And then there's the hidden camera aspect. They're trying to shoot a scary reality show at the Myers house where they've set up all these fake traps and stuff, and it turns out Michael has been living under the house, and he starts killing the actual people.
Was it under, or was it in the attic?
No, it was under. It was under. And then or in the walls. It might have been in the walls, whatever. But then he's killing these people while others are watching on the internet, and there's this ridiculous Decker character that never even meets the main girl that he's helping throughout the movie. It was just a mess. And top it all off with Busta Rhymes doing frickin' kung fu. It's the worst. Anyway, Marcia.
He's doing that because he knows that this movie's gonna be higher on my list.
So then I guess, so you've given us your bottom 4 essentially, because one of them being unranked. So why don't you? What's your next one then?
Okay, so I'm gonna go with the Rob Zombies.
Both of them?
Yeah.
You're making this hard on me.
I'm
supposed
sorry,
to go one at a time.
but okay, I'll say.
So which one?
Halloween 2.
Okay.
It was the lowest.
Okay. So that's number 7 for you.
Because the story was less about Michael and more about the demise of Laurie Strode and her, not being able to deal with what happened with her, and just so self-involved that she totally dismisses the fact that her best friend also went through that and probably was closer to death than she was. And just totally, it made it more about her than her friend. And then who's the Danielle
Harris? Yeah,
Danielle Harris' death was such a disappointment and kind of like a finger at her into her character, and because it was off screen, it was just not a tribute to her. I mean, even though I thought the Thorne trilogies were lower ranking than these movies, she did do a really good job, and that character did hold some weight, and I just thought they did her dirty, and so I would say that put that one, and I hated every single character in that movie. It was just so annoying to watch all of them, and the fact that not everyone died was even more annoying. So I would say Halloween 2, Rob Zombie was on top of the Thorns.
Okay, and then your next one above that is the first Rob Zombie one?
Would be the first one, yeah.
Okay, so go ahead and why that one?
Because the first time I watched it, I really dug it because it was a long time since we had a refresh of the Michael series, and it felt raw, felt fresh. I love Rob Zombie, and I felt like I think I had a little bit of blinders on because I am such a huge Rob Zombie fan, and I was just excited about the refresh of the series, but rewatching it, I realized how heavy they relied on the backstory of Michael Myers and how much it detracted from the actual movie. Once it finally got into the back end of the movie and we got to the kills and Michael Myers attacking Laurie Strode and all that, I really enjoyed it. So that's why I put it as high as I did. Really was because of the backstory.
Okay.
And I really didn't like how white trashy he made Michael and his family. Because we watched the Rob Zombie movies before we watched the older ones in order, and watching this movie and then going to the 1978 version, you realize like how trashy Rob Zombie made it. And you know, people say, oh well, it's Rob Zombie, he makes everything trashy. I wouldn't say, maybe, I don't know, but it was like there was no reason for them to be that trashy, and I think it took away from the fact why Michael was so scary was because in the original it wasn't about you know, you go nature versus nurture, and the original was more nature than nurture, and Rob Zombie made it about nurture. And I don't like that. I'm more of a I like the idea that he was born and there was nothing that the parents or the family could do to make him, you know, the way he is. It's just, you know, he is that evil, and that's what's scary about Michael Myers. When you look, especially in 1978, you know, where you're coming off of an era where everybody is living in white picket fence houses, and if you do the right thing, then everybody's going to be perfect. Well, that wasn't Michael. So that's why it's definitely not on the top, but it's more mid-range for me.
Okay. So that was your number 6. So I'm going to do my 8, 7, and 6, which is my Thorne trilogy. I did 4 as number 8, and then I liked 6 a little bit better, and then I liked 5 a little bit better. 4, it wasn't great, but it at least felt more like a Michael Myers movie than the ones underneath it. 6, I thought, had a great Michael Myers and a great mask. It was a good setup, but it was a bad Paul Rudd. It was just confusing with the Thorne and the Man in Black, and just the amount of piecing together they kind of had to do was just a mess. It didn't really feel like a fully finished movie, but there were aspects that I did like. I liked the massacre of the medical, you know, all of the surgery people and whatever waiting to try and do the surgery, and then I did like the ending of the theatrical cut more than the producer's cut, where they actually beat down Michael with a lead pipe. And then the 5th one, I thought Danielle Harris was particularly good. A lot of good non-kitchen knife kills, because he, you know, Myers generally just uses a kitchen knife, and it, you know, gets a little boring to me. But the characters were really bad, you know, with Tina and the, you know, bumbling cops. So yeah, that's number 8 was Halloween 4, number 7 was Halloween 6, number 6 was Halloween 5, which brings us to the number 5, which is where I put Rob Zombie's original Halloween. I really enjoyed it the first time I watched it. The second time we watched it this month in order to you know, do our review, or last month rather, I didn't like it nearly as much. I didn't remember the origin feeling as long as it felt on the rewatch. It felt a lot quicker when I watched it the first time, and it might have been because we watched the director's cut on the rewatch. But yeah, I didn't like. Again, I think and I know for a fact that the way Mikey escapes is different in the theatrical cut. In the director's cut, like these two guys almost rape a girl. That doesn't happen in the theatrical cut. Yeah. So I need to rewatch those, frankly. But I did really like the movie. I thought the second half is completely rushed, you know. Well, actually, yeah, the first half is the first third is Michael as a kid. The second third is Michael in the asylum, and the last third is Michael, you know, it's Halloween 1, essentially. And so it felt so rushed that it didn't have time to develop the sort of mystique and atmosphere that the original Halloween did. So I do like the brutalness of Michael Myers in this. I call him Mikey because Danny Trejo called him Mikey, so I keep calling him Mikey in the Rob Zombie Halloween ones. But yeah, it's I still overall like that one more than all the other ones I've said so far. So what's your number 5?
I would say Resurrection is my next one.
Okay. Why do you put it so high?
I love Resurrection because it's so ridiculous. And, I mean, it's not high enough to be like a top 3 by any means, but I just love it because it is kind of silly, and it does link to H20, which is the response to Halloween 1 and 2. And it is another refresh, and it is very 2000s, and I remember watching it in the theaters, and just having fun with it, because it's like, okay, like, this is ridiculous, but you go back to, you get to be in the Michael Myers house, and you get to kind of have fun. You're watching these people going around. It is that reality TV show, which was huge at that time, where people were doing the house hunters and things like that. and they were like, oh, we're gonna stage it because that's what we do. We want to make people, watch this. Live internet was still like a baby. Like, internet was still like not as it is now. YouTube wasn't even around at that time. Like, it was very fresh. So the idea of, being able to watch something live like this was still a very new concept, and I thought it was really interesting that they incorporated and updated Michael Myers in that way to include those things. And yes, the kills are kind of campy, and it was very silly, and Busta Rhymes is, like, still kills me today. It's my favorite line, trick or treat, mother. And I do it wrong, but I love it, Trick or treat, mother. I mean, it's ridiculous. And, but the crazy thing is, too, Busta Rhymes is really the only one who has successfully murdered Michael Myers.
No, he didn't. No, he wakes up at the end.
No, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, but not in the cut, in the other cut.
No, in the theatrical cut he does.
Yeah, no, because he kills him with the axe.
Well, in the deleted scene. That's not the other cut. That's the deleted scene, Marcia. It's the deleted scene. Anyway. No, he doesn't kill him.
Oh, he kills him.
No, he doesn't.
He electrifies him. Anyways, I do love it because it is a fun movie.
That's right. The electrifying ending is so bad. I'm glad I put it as low as I did. All right. So does that mean that is your top 4 the same as my top 4? Is
Probably.
it like the exact same order?
Yeah. No, that's right. All right. Yeah, that's all right.
Well, we'll just do that then.
Yeah.
So, I guess for both of us then, I'll do number 4, you do 3, I'll do 2, you do 1.
Okay.
All right. So number 4 for us was the original sequel, Halloween 2, from 1981. This one was, obviously it brought back Loomis, it brought back Laurie, brought back Carpenter and Deborah Hill to be involved. And while it didn't bring back Nick Castle, it did bring back the original mask. It was worn by a different guy, which is why it looks different, because he has a wider face, Dick Warlock. And this one, while it's one of my least favorite Michael Myers it's still one of the top Halloween movies because it's done so well, and because of Carpenter's involvement and punching up the score, and they have the cool follow-up pumpkin intro where the inside is the skull, and it's so much cooler than the first one even. The kills are more aggressive in this, and there's a bit of boobage, so that's always nice.
Hey.
I don't love this movie, but I do like it more than the rest of the ones we've listed.
Yeah.
What about for you?
I liked it because I like the way they made it feel kind of seamless from one. And because you don't see that anymore with sequels. It was a continuation of the story at the same time.
Like literally picks it up.
Yeah. And I liked that, and I liked how they explain the history. I like that they waited until 2 to explain the history of Michael Myers and linked him to Laurie and why, and it kind of explained the why and the going through the town, and Loomis like just trying to figure out how to get Michael back, and still, even though everybody's like murdered, people are not really taking him as seriously as they probably should be, and you get the reactions of the town to the murders, which I thought was really good too. And I don't know. I mean, it wasn't as strong as the first one, and you can tell it had some sequel woes, and I don't like the way they underutilized Jamie Lee Curtis, and there were a lot more like offside kills too. So yeah, I don't think it didn't have any of the humor either. It's a lot more serious, a lot more dramatic with his kills, and it was just kind of weird that he's still able to just walk through the town and get everywhere without having to drive a car. But the hospital seems very close to everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
But anyway, but at the end of the
writing
day, I
conveniences.
think I thought it was like a decent follow up to the first one.
Okay.
So that's where I put it as 4.
So what's our number 3?
So number 3 is Halloween H2O. I love Halloween H2O, even with it's not as ridiculous as Resurrection, but it has its moments. But I thought they did a really good job of portraying Laurie Strode 20 years later. It was very proper that she found a way to separate herself from Michael. She never believed that he was dead, so she stayed prepared and on her toes, put herself in a secured private school, made sure her kid was secured. No Jamie, she never existed because this is a reboot of this kind of partial reboot because it's after 2. But she has a kid and she's protecting him or trying to protect him, and I do say like a lot of this stuff didn't hold up as it did when I first watched the movie over the years. But there's still some fun aspects that I really enjoyed about it. Even though Cecil hates the one-handed drop down, I still love that because it makes me giggle, and
it shouldn't though. It's not supposed to be a giggle-making point.
I giggle at a lot of things that I shouldn't giggle at.
True.
So there you go. And the fact that everybody was very dismissive about the whole Michael thing bothered me a little bit about the storyline. It was very convenient. But when Michael finally got in there and he did do some kills, I did appreciate the kills that he did do. And I know you're going to make a few points I'm not going to reiterate about like the lack of kills in some of the story choices. But I thought the acting was pretty well done. I thought Jamie Lee Curtis did a phenomenal job. I thought Josh Hartnett did a good job. Everybody else was kind of secondary. LL Cool J is always fun to watch, though. So that's
I liked it.
assessment.
I think it's the first half is much better than the second half. I think the setup is great. I think Laurie is given way more to chew on than even she was in the newest one.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought Josh Hartnett is good. Michelle Williams did okay, I guess. I've never been completely blown away by her, but and then a couple of other people, that are just kind of cannon fodder. It was good. I liked the confrontation once Michael and Laurie are face to face. I hated the fact that we kept switching between, I think, 4 different masks, including a CGI painted on one at one point.
You forgot to wear the mask that day.
Well, it was so bad. I mean, that's just such a bad idea. But yeah, it starts off really strong. I think LL Cool J is not even as fun as he was in Deep Blue Sea. He's just kind of silly in this. But yeah, it's overall it's a fun movie, and it is still very of the 2000s, but not nearly as aggressively leaning into it as Resurrection was.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was H2O. So that brings us to number 2, which both of us agree the brand new release Halloween 2018 is the second best movie in the Halloween franchise. For me, it's because a lot of different things. I mean, outside of the fact that Laurie has less to chew on than she did in the original sequel H2, not even the original sequel, the second sequel H2O, I think that Michael is the best since the first one here. His mask is the best since the first one here. He's also, as I said in our review, he's a mixture of the Nick Castle Michael from part 1 and the brutal Michael from Halloween, or Rob Zombie's Halloween. Mm-hmm. I thought the humor, while it could be a little distracting at times, it was still funny. So while it did keep me from being tenser than I might have at one point, it still was overall, I think, a good addition. But there were 1 or 2 things that happened that bummed me out. There's a character reveal at one point that is just so stupid and out of the blue. It doesn't, I didn't like it at all. But yeah, overall, I had a good time, and there was a lot of kills, and it was a healthy mixture of after the fact off-screen kills and actually on-screen gory kills. Mm-hmm. So I thought they struck that balance well. So I really liked this one.
I thought they did a fantastic job. I had no idea what we're going to walk into when we watched that movie because there was so much hype going into it, and everybody was just like had really high expectations, and I already knew that it was going to be a a direct sequel for the first one, so. And they already had spoiled that, you know, he's not actually related to Laurie, which ended up being a really small, like, pivotal point. Like, it was just kind of like, okay, they're not really.
Didn't even make a difference.
Yeah, it didn't make a difference in the storyline whatsoever. It was just okay, so some random guy stalked this girl and killed her. Like, friends. Like, I don't know why they made such a big deal and point to even have that. And maybe if they do any follow-ups, if there are going to be any follow-ups to this, does open up new doors. I don't know. I thought everybody did a really good job. I like the Michael as well. I like that they did bring in the kind of like the humor aspect and the fun he has dishing up his victims, and the fun that the actors had responding to Michael. And Jamie Lee Curtis did a great job. I think Jamie Lee Curtis kind of kept bringing me out though, because she reminded me so much of like my mother and like my 1990s mother with the hair, the triangle hair. It just kept like pulling me out for that aspect. I don't know. Nothing to do with the movie itself, but I think she was pulling me out a little bit. But I don't know. I thought
we did a whole review, so
we did do a whole review, and I do think it does fit as a good second follow up, because I feel like if they would have made a movie similar to this, it's a good response. It's a good 40 years later. I feel like it would have been just as good if they made it a part 3 versus a part 2. So
fair enough. And then that's going to leave our final one, which is what, Marcia?
Halloween 1.
Yep. The original, 1978.
And it's every Wednesday. So we just went to that Halloween 40-year convention, and every person I asked says the same thing: Halloween 1. Mm-hmm. Halloween 1. It's the best one. It's the best one you're going to get. And they've all saw the VIPs. I think all saw the movie too, because they got a special preview for it for going to the convention. And so that was interesting to also hear that, you know, it didn't beat the first one. And the first one, I mean, it's a classic. It's really what, Texas Chainsaw Massacre and all that came out before, but it still really cemented the idea of the slasher and the final girl, and that POV shot of Michael first killing his sister, and just the ominous of Michael Myers and that evil. And just going back to the whole, he wasn't created by his upbringing or any outside influence. It was just Michael just being evil. And I feel like even as a parent, it's terrifying to think that, you know, a spawn could just kill your other kid and just grow up to be this crazy serial killer tracking people down and murdering them for fun, or whatever his reasoning is, and that's what's really scary, and the fact that it was so easy for him to do that and to get away, and to traumatize Laurie Strode for years to come. And it's just the everything from the cinematography, the sound design, the acting, it all came together to create this classic that will always be there and enjoyed by generations. So it rightfully does deserve to be at the top.
Yeah, I mean, agree. All the same reasons. I mean, it was Carpenter's original. They made it for $300,000, and it just blew everyone away. It was a labor of love. They made it in 17 days, and just fantastic. The camera work is unparalleled in most horror movies. I mean, or at least I wouldn't say unparalleled, but I would say at least it set the bar for a lot of horror movies, how well that thing was shot. Acting, good for the most part. There's a couple of possibly iffy performances.
Totally.
Lack of gore, still a little bit disappointing for me, but just it's the atmosphere alone is the atmosphere of Halloween might be unparalleled. It's really, really good. So it's, standard Psycho going after the babysitter story that's been emulated hundreds of times, but it's emulated for a reason. It's a classic for a reason. And it's going to take an awful damn lot for any movie in the Halloween franchise to surpass that first one. It was a valiant effort, the most recent one.
Yeah, it was really good. It was very close. Mm-hmm. It was very close. And because it had that balance. Mm-hmm. It had the same kind of balance that the first one did, but I think the problem is nobody's gonna be able to get that experience back.
Mhm.
But however, there were people at the Halloween movie said it was the first one they watched,
Yeah. So,
which I thought was an interesting.
but I'll
choice.
bet they won't like the first one as much. It's so weird how that's gonna work. We'll see.
Yeah. So if you watched the first Halloween before watching the other Halloweens, I'd be very interested to see how you would rank it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's going to do it, guys. That's our ranking of the Halloween movies. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll do more rankings in the future. It's kind of, weird having multiple people do a ranking. It can make for a really long video. So
Sorry.
I'm sorry about that. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
I'm Marcia Parker.
And remember, stay scared.